Welcome back to the In Between podcast. I am so excited to be launching season 4. And of course, we're back with solo episodes again. Ruby and I realized that you guys really love business stuff. So we're going to try to focus on business tips and tricks, mindset related to business, and all of those things. So today, I really want to talk about reframing the mindset of, losing clients or losing business, and how to not let those things define you and build resilience to, all the things in life and especially business. You're going to hear no a lot. And if you don't develop this muscle of resilience, of hearing no and being able to get back up again, you're going to let it define you. It's going to become a narrative inside of your head. So I want to start with some stories that in the past of owning a business, my mindset was determined by the outcome of what happened in this scenario. And I want to start with a client that I was working for. I loved working for them. We outgrew each other. It was also an extremely high-paying client, and I had to fire the client because it wasn't working for my agency anymore. And before I had even fired this client and decided I was going another direction, I had totally let losing this client define me. I had decided that I was a failure because I was letting this client go. That was an extreme amount of money. It was supporting my business in so many different ways, and that I was going to be a failure for letting them go. But if I reframe it, I realized that the work was way too much for a small agency, right? I had so much going on, other clients, my assistant, and this job was basically that of a full-time job. And the work was growing because her company was growing, the business was growing, which is great. But for me to maintain and continue to grow with her would mean to put back to continue to grow with her, I would have to put everything else in the back burner. The client roster that I currently had, building my business, building my team, all for this one client, which at the end of the day, what is that? That's a full-time job. And so eventually when I told her I was going in a different direction, she had such positive feedback, and she was like, absolutely, like, you need to go and do what you need to do and have space to build what you want to build. And that's your dream, right? She was positive about it. But I had to work through that mindset often of like, okay, this doesn't mean I'm a failure. And roles reversed. If I have a client that lets me go, it also doesn't mean I'm a failure. It just means that those pieces of the puzzle of us working are no longer matching up. They're no longer working. And I need to be able to move on and not sulk and sit in it for too long. So at the end of the day, we've all been there. We've all chosen to define our success based off of circumstances. And when we let that define us, it determines the mindset we have towards other opportunities. So if your head's down and you're upset because you just lost your dream client yesterday, you might be missing the other people who are trying to work with you. So I want to give you 4 really main tips that have helped me really redefine these, what could be known as a setback, really redefine these things that feel like failures, but they're not. So the first mindset switch you want to make is realizing that these setbacks, they're not truth. They're not your identity. They're just simply data points, right? They're giving us information. They're giving us feedback, depending on the client, right? It may have ended well, but I was still gaining feedback in, okay, this client is a little bit too big for my current agency. Where can I scale to achieve clients like that? It's just simply data. It is not truth. It doesn't stand that I'm a failure or that I can't do this. Now, if that client was to come back to me at that scale where her business was, my agency could probably handle it. I could probably handle it. The capacity was not there for me. That was simply data at that point and had nothing to do with the truth of who I am as a person and as a business owner. You want to change what you're reflecting on from what you can control to what you can't control. I couldn't control the growth of her business, my feelings towards the workload, and that the price that I was charging her didn't allow me to grow my business and get help. Those were things that I couldn't control in that moment and were too overwhelming for me. But what I could control is looking at the situation and deciding where my ownership was and what needed to happen. And I had mentors and coaches that really helped me through that, of deciding, hey, this situation isn't working the way that I once hoped or the way that it once worked. And it's no longer serving me. How can I be in control of the situation? Hiring me and them hiring me and me hiring them, it's a two-way street, right? So I have the opportunity to get out. I have the opportunity to make a different choice. I just needed to do that. I needed to take ownership and be in control at that point. One of the biggest parts of the past situation I'm referring to is suddenly had a bunch of downtime, right? Because there was this massive client. I had 3 or 4 smaller clients, but I had a lot of that downtime. In that time, utilizing what you've learned from the situation, taking care of yourself, pitching new clients, maybe refining your business plan, refining how you pitch to clients, all of those different things, refining your product if you're a product-based business. Learning. I spent a lot of time with my coach learning, how can I avoid getting in this situation again where my capacity is at max, I'm not aligning with the type of clientele that I'm selling to. So I spent a lot of time in the business developing who is my ideal client and how am I serving them best. That's also staying true to me and my values as a company. And then the last one is shifting your focus to the things that are gaining momentum. So new opportunities, new skills, taking what you've learned and focusing on those things. The longer that you stay focused on this thing that is not serving you, that already happened, that's in the past, the more negativity that comes from it. You need to shift your focus and reframe immediately. So a strategy I use now, which I didn't have this strategy back then, but now, if I get an email of a client that's no longer going to be able to work with me, or maybe I pitched a client and it's not going to work out, I immediately give myself 1 day, and by the next morning, I have to be over it and I have to move on. Whether that day is, I saw the email at 8 o'clock at night or I saw it at 8 in the morning, it doesn't matter. The day ends. The next day, we're on to something else, new opportunities, new people, new package, whatever it is. And so focusing on where can I gain momentum? This client said no. Okay, that's totally fine. Where can I reach out to 3 other people? This person said no to my product. Okay, great. Where are 3 people I haven't spoke to about it? And really trying to focus on that positive energy, which sounds cliche, but mindset really is that. It's positive versus negative. And if you choose to see the positive, you're going to get positive results. So if you're in a season where you're currently experiencing a setback, and maybe you're not, maybe you're just taking notes, that's fine too. I want you to ask yourself, what can I learn from this setback? What will I sit here 2 years from now and reflect and be like, oh, thank goodness I went through that because I learned X, Y, Z. For me, in my situation, that was a big lesson in identifying who my ideal client is, and not just on like a marketing sales standpoint, but value-wise, are we aligned? I learned what scope creep was if you're in marketing, where people kind of creep up and add services that they're not paying you for. I learned that I'm extremely loyal. When I work with clients, I want to work with them for a really long time. And sometimes that's a disservice to me because I don't see that, hey, there might be some red flags here and we need to have a meeting reevaluating what we're doing. Am I still aligned with you? Am I still aligned with your mission? Am I still aligned with what you're doing? Because if I'm not, I might not be the person to be working with you, because for me, things need to align in integrity and value, and that might not be lining up. And so I needed to learn what those values were, what those intentions were for me to have when I'm working with a company, make those clear so they know, and then have those conversations every 6 months, every year. Like, hey, your contract's being renewed. are we still on the same page? So ask yourself what this setback is teaching you, how you're going to use these lessons to better your business, to better your personal life, and then go out and choose positivity, because that's the real mindset win. Thanks so much for tuning in to the In Between podcast. I hope that you check us out on Instagram at In Between Combos, and feel free to subscribe or leave a comment.